This next speaker is one of my favorites. I've seen him speak many times before. He's an astronomer, but he also owns a model-making business, and he makes models for the entertainment industry. He actually works with the special effects guru Douglas Trumbull on not just models and entertainment, but also on UFO projects. But he also does top secret projects for the government, creating like detailed models of different things like submarines and stuff like that. So he's an incredible person, a very interesting person. So I'm very happy to welcome to the UFO Congress. Please help me welcome Marc Dantonio.
Hey, Alejandro. Hello, guys. How are you? Okay, got to make sure we don't get any of those. I don't know how many of you have seen me talk before, but I don't use podiums. And the reason I don't use podiums is because podiums were invented as a way to shield the rulers from the slings and arrows and tomatoes and cabbages thrown by the people when delivering bad news. So when you're back here, it's like, and astronomy is a wonderful science. We don't want to do that. So I don't use them. I have to use it only to advance the slide, I guess. But that said, I am an astronomer, and this is what we look like without the tie. We don't usually wear ties in the observatories because they get caught in telescopes. It could be really dangerous. But my talk today is a little different, and those of you that have seen me talk before, you know that I talk about planets around other stars. That's my specialty in astronomy, exoplanets. But the thing is that this is a little different because, and it's called entering a new science. And the reason is because in the process of being an astronomer, doing my research, doing work, I've also had weird experiences that my science does not explain. And that's what tonight is about. I'm going to talk about those experiences. I don't think I've talked about these ever before to an audience. So you are the first, you know. So hopefully it'll be something that you enjoy. Now, the truth is that our science does serve us well most of the time, but sometimes it fails, and we're going to talk about those failures and how it relates to the experiences I had and stuff that I have never been able to explain to this day. So, how science has served us well is with looks at things in the universe that we can't explain. And the explanations work very well. For example, this beautiful thing. What is that big, nasty, weird thing? This is a galaxy 55 million light years away. It's the M87 galaxy in Virgo. And it's the center of the galaxy. And in the center of that galaxy was this black object. Well, it's a supermassive black hole that is literally 3 times the size of our solar system. A black hole. Now, what's the definition of a black hole? Well, it's a collapsed massive star initially, and then this massive star, this collapse as a black hole now absorbs other things that fall into it. They orbit and fall into it, and the orbits decay and then go right in, and it grows. And in the middle of a galaxy that's very populous with lots and lots and lots of other stars, it's not uncommon to actually see this happen and find that we will find the black holes growing to immense sizes. So in the middle of M87 is this amazing black hole. And it was found by what's called the Event Horizon Telescope. The Event Horizon Telescope is a telescope that literally comprises the entire Earth. It basically is a lot of telescopes all over the Earth that look at this one object in the sky, namely M87 supermassive black hole. And what they do is they actually take those many paths of the telescope, for all those telescopes, and they make an 8,000-mile diameter telescope from it, effectively. And what that does is that Event Horizon Telescope shows us this. This is the first ever image of a real black hole. First ever. We've never seen one before. Well, there it is. Exciting, isn't it? Yeah, I know. It's like, it's what? It's like a round thing. It looks like a donut that's right on one side. Trust me, that's a big achievement, because those objects that you see, that brightening at the bottom and that dimming at the top and that black thing in the center, that was predicted exactly by Einstein's theory of relativity. And what we saw is exactly what was predicted. This is where science works. Yay! Wow! Well, what about when it fails? That's the good part. So, the universe perplexes us every which way we turn. And the photos you see are courtesy of our observatory Sky Tour live stream. It's on YouTube. You can join. It's free. And on clear nights, we go out and take people all around the world on journeys to these deep sky objects like the one you see here. So you can have fun with that. I'll put that up later so you can see. But the universe gives us these things that we don't know what to do with. One of them is the expansion rate of the universe. You know, it started from a big bang and went outward. Well, if we can figure out how fast it went outward, we can work back and figure out how old it is, when it happened. We figured out that, hey, in 1929, Edwin Hubble figured out that the expansion rate of the universe was such that the universe was around 13.8 billion years old. Until the Max Planck telescope, more recently, and another science team determined that, well, maybe that's not so true. The universe might not be that old. It's actually expanding faster than previously thought. In fact, it's not just expanding, it's accelerating as it goes out. It's accelerating faster and faster. So now we don't really know what the expansion rate is. We know what it is for the moment. But then it changes, and it changes, and it changes. So it's perplexing. And this led to a need to find something that could cause that. And that's something we call dark energy. Yeah, dark energy. Catchy phrase. We have no idea what it is. That's true. We have no idea what dark energy is. You know, it's a repulsive force, and we know that it causes everything around it to be accelerating away from everything else. It's really strange. But it's the only thing that fits our science. It drives space apart. And I say space, not objects. Space. Space is like a fabric. It's a medium. It's not water, but it acts somewhat like a medium like air or water. Why would I say that? Okay, I'll tell you. We don't know what this is. We don't know what this is. We don't know what dark energy is, but we know that it causes the very fabric of space to move outward. And what does that have to do with anything? Okay, well, what it has to do with is the fact that it makes up 73% of everything we know. 73%. That's huge, you know. And when I say space acts like a medium, I want to clarify. When you take a pebble and you drop it in water, I've practiced that, okay? You drop it in water. I'll teach you how to do that, okay? $5. You drop it in water and you see these ripples radiate out. Well, those ripples, you understand because you see them are in water. Water is the medium that's transmitting this shock wave outward. Well, guess what? When two black holes collide out in space, we also see shock waves moving through space. Those shock waves aren't water. They're gravitational waves expanding from this collision. Now, what's that? You can't have something expanding into nothing. You can't have a ripple when there's nothing there. This is proof that there is something that space is made of. And we call that the space-time continuum, the fabric of space. We can represent it mathematically, but don't worry, we're not going there. Okay? However, when we represent it, we have to be careful to understand that we don't understand fully what it is. And that's part of our problem, you know? So that's one of the oddities that we worry about, that we don't understand. But there's some others. And that picture, by the way, the Andromeda Galaxy, also taken by Sky Tour live stream, you know, blah, blah, blah. When we look at galaxies like the Andromeda galaxy you see there, the galaxies have spiral arms, and stars are all orbiting the galaxy. When you look at our solar system, the closest planet to our star is Mercury, and it goes around the sun in 88 days. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Pluto, on the other hand, it's going around every 270 plus years. So objects farther away from the sun orbit slower. Objects closer to the sun orbit faster. Shouldn't it be that way with a galaxy? Shouldn't the stars closer to the middle orbit faster, and the stars on the outside orbit slower? Well, guess what? That's not true. That's not what we find at all. It literally acts like a violation to what is called Newtonian physics. And it looks like this. Don't worry about the graph. Just understand that that top curve up there, that shows how the velocities of the stars are measured from the center of the galaxy down near the origin there all the way to the outside. Do you see that it's actually climbing and then actually getting bigger and bigger and higher? It's almost like it's spinning like a rigid disk rather than spinning like, a galaxy that could be winding its arms up on itself as it spins. That is a really odd finding. And we didn't know how to handle it. We still don't, but we have an idea. Hey, Frank, let's think of that dark thing again. Oh, yeah, dark. Let's call it dark matter. We say that because energy's taken. We have dark energy, let's have dark matter. And dark matter basically is something that is used to define something we don't understand. It's mass, it's more material outside in what we call the halo outside the galaxy, which makes it seem to rotate as a single entity, not as separate stars and spiral arms that'll wind up. That's what we expect it to do. And by the way, it comprises 23% of the known universe. So 73 and 23, that's 96. Okay. We only understand 4% of the universe in reality, do you see? Oh, and by the way, just a little caveat, little one. We have dark matter, we have dark energy, 96%, and 4% is baryonic matter, what we call it baryonic matter. That's protons, neutrons, muons, gluons, and so on. Okay? And we don't have an understanding of what half of that 4% is. We can't find that other half. Even in the 4% we do know, half of it we can't find. Well, great. What do we know? Well, the problem is this means that the Big Bang Theory can't work. But we know it did, but it can't. So how do we fix that? We're not going to go into that too far, but there doesn't seem to be enough mass to have made a Big Bang, So one of the thoughts was that maybe we're talking about a Big Bang plus other parallel universes that got spurted off at the same time, right? And we'll come back to that in a second. And that takes us into part 2, unexplained phenomena. Now, unexplained phenomena, we saw some astronomical things, and we also have to talk about the subjective human experiences, what you see when you go outside, what I see, what I experience, what I feel. I'm a valid observer. You're valid observers. You're here because you're valid observers, okay? And you have good taste in the people you want to watch talk. I just want to mention that. That's right. I really am humble about it, trust me. I'm very humbled you're all here. Thank you. So when we talk about the parallel universe theory, maybe our Big Bang was this little bit of a off of the main Big Bang, And that's actually a theory that's being floated, no pun intended about space, but it's being floated right now as a possibility. We don't even know if our universe is the only one. In fact, it looks likely that it may not be. That works for me because who or what would live in this other universe, the other universes, okay, for one thing. And how would I know? I have to tell you a little story, and it runs like this. I own a company called FX Models. I do visual effects for film and television, and I also have a degree in astronomy, which is where I go to primarily these days. And I was working with special effects legend Douglas Trumbull, good friend. Alejandro's met him. He's a great guy. And while I was working on this model in my shop, I saw this semi-transparent animal walk in. Wait a minute. My eyes are tired. No, wait, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm not tired. I'm as excited as I am now to be with you guys. But this thing walks in, and it's hopping along. It looked like a Pekingese dog, okay? And I felt that way because it was doing this little funny gait. Certainly wasn't a cat. Cats come in like this. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't look at me, you know? Just feed me and look at me. Look the other way. But dogs are like, touch me, you know? And this thing was doing that. It came in and it circled and it sat down on my shop floor. I don't own a Pekingese dog. But this was semi-transparent. It was sort of water without the shine is how I describe it, without the specular highlights. Kind of looked like a shadow, but not a shadow. And it was sitting right there on my floor. And, you know, when you get tired, you always see things in your vision. You go, what's that? What's that? Okay, this was right in front of me. And I wasn't tired. In fact, I was late to go up to the studio to show Doug this cool creation I made for our movie. And I'm looking at it, and it looks like it's licking itself. I won't detail what I think it was doing, but, you know, get an idea. That's what dogs do. So I walked over to it, and I'm staring at it, and I kind of got a little nervous at this point, because from over here where I was, I saw a perspective of it here. Now I walk over to it, and as I got to this point, I can see the other side of it that I couldn't see from over there. But I, at this point, had been thinking, and trust me, I'll tell you why I know this. I'd been thinking all this time that I had a medical anomaly because I was seeing all kinds of people walking around, hearing people talking that weren't there. They're not telling me to do things like kill your dogs, you know, or anything like that. They were just like being in a crowded room. I literally had to take medication to focus so I wouldn't cut my hands off in a saw or something because it was irritating me. You know, I went to neurologists. I had 2 or 3 MRIs. I had many CAT scans to try and figure out. I even wore this really strange contraption that was a helmet made of gauze with black electrode package coming off like a tube. I looked like Neo from The Matrix, okay? And these had electrodes going to my brain, and I had to monitor what was going on in my brain so that I could confirm that what was happening was not medical. I was doing the diligence because I had a theory. And to test it, I had to eliminate medical reasons. So this thing's lying on the floor, and I did this. I stepped on it. No, it's not cruel, okay? Because when I stepped on it, it recognized that I stepped on it, and it got up and started to walk away at a fast rate, like, ow, what are you doing? And started to walk away. When it did that, life changed. Because as it did that, I felt like 2 north poles of a magnet, and that really, really strong magnets just go by each other, but they can't touch. I felt that on the bottom of this heel, okay, right on the bottom of this heel. And it felt like someone had wrapped a bungee cord around that and then put that force on and started running away with the bungee cord. I could feel my foot starting to pull away and follow it, all right? And I couldn't stop it. I leaned like this, go, whoa, 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 what's going on? And the next thing I know, wham, this foot flies right out. I see it up there. My right foot follows. I see the lights. And the next thing I see are stars because I hit my head on the floor. Okay, totally upended. But on the way down, it hit my shoulder on the side of a workbench. So it was like, boom, boom. Oh, that was so painful. And I got up and said, that was so cool. What happened? You know, and I was elated because to me, I was seeing something different, seeing something new. And my theory was, what if, because, you know, science guy, got to explain it. What if the concept of the multiverse is actually true? And this dog creature was bleed through from another parallel universe. And it was here, and what if this step was rudimentary communication, rough as it was, with this thing? I pondered that for a long time. And I thought, I could just be nuts. I could just be losing my mind, you know. But then I started looking up papers in the Astrophysical Journal and other things talking about parallel universes. And you know what? There's a surprising number of papers on this topic by very, very well-educated people saying things like, we believe that there are parallel universes based on the mass that's missing from the Big Bang, like we talked about earlier. So because of that, we believe that the Big Bang was a little spurt off of a larger set of bangs, and those universes are out there too. Now, they didn't say where they're laid out, how they're laid out. And then I looked for more papers, and guess what I found? I found a paper that said, we believe that there are parallel universes, and here's how we think they're laid out. Just like this. They're laid out in a certain way. And I thought, wow, this is corroborating everything that I'm trying to research here. This makes sense to me, strange as it sounds. But think about this. This violates my science. This violates all the known science to this point. Something grabbing my foot like that violates my science. I told people about what happened, and they're like, have you seen a psychiatrist? What, me? No, I said nothing. I didn't say anything. Right? Well, look, the truth is, I've actually seen psychiatrists, psychologists, neurologists. I did the diligence. I wanted to find out if there was something wrong in my head that was causing me to see things and feel things like this. They actually tested me for epilepsy, thinking, well, maybe that was a weird kind of epileptic seizure that we've never heard of before that caused your foot to whip out and almost hyperextend your knee. Now, when I hit that workbench on the way down, by the way, I had to go to the hospital because I ripped my shoulder. I ended up with what's called a frozen shoulder. That took 6 months to heal, you know. Grabbing a thing like this and yanking, oh, the pain would be intense. So it's something that really happened. There's a record of it, too. You don't have to take my word for any of this. You can actually find the doctor records and see. This is publicly available stuff, you know. And so, to me, this constitutes a possible parallel intersection. I call it a parallel universe intersect, a PUI. And so it was very compelling to me, and I've not abandoned it in any way. Now, we also hear about these things. You know, we hear about UFO sightings, we hear about abductions, we hear about missing time, we hear about implants and encounters with extraterrestrial beings all the time. Everyone, you're all here because of this. Okay? If I ask you a question, how many have seen a UFO, the typical question, almost all your hands are going to go up. Okay? Even the cameraman. Right. See, so it's true. You know, we're talking about something that really does strike a visceral chord with us. Now, when we talk about UFO sightings and crashes, we all know about Roswell. We've heard of that. I don't focus on the historical cases. I focus on the future and current. That's why I'm working with Doug Trumbull to create the UFO detection. You know, UFO. It's actually it used to be called UFOTOG 2, but now it's called the UFO detection system. It's actually a system to unidentified aerial anomaly detector, because you put UFO in it and the funding runs away. Okay, we're looking for funding from very high-end sources. So if it's something that can benefit the world scientifically, well, then they'll do that. You say UFO, and they go, oh, the nuts. You know, you got to avoid that. You know, unfortunately, we heard of ATIP. Okay, Kevin Day. Don't miss Kevin Day. You know, if you get a chance to talk to Kevin, talk to him about ATIP. It's fantastic. Okay. That program has systematically revealed more information than I ever thought possible, that I ever thought the government would release, okay? So that's pretty cool. And then, I think I zoomed ahead here. Yeah, so we've also had objects seen underwater, including a coast sighting off Sweden in 2014. I was just in Norway last week, well, since August 14th, because I was doing a speaking tour in Oslo and Bergen and a town called Lunda. And I talked to the people about the Swedish coast sighting, and guess what? Every one of them heard about it. 2014. They said, oh yeah, we heard about that. You know, they told us it was a Russian sub. Yeah, but does a Russian sub do this? If it does, that's one heck of a Russian sub. You know, it's not a sub that I've ever seen. But objects underwater do exist. And there's a reason I know that. Because I have a company called FX Models. I've done special projects for the U.S. Navy since, several decades. And as a result of doing one project, I was asked if I wanted to go to sea on a U.S. submarine. And I said, well, duh. I don't want to be disrespectful, but yeah, like immediately. And they said, okay. So they sent me to sea on this attack sub. And I can't say where we went and why we were going, but I can say that it was the most fun I had getting seasick. That's right. Did you have fun, Mr. Dantonio? Yeah, I did. It was so much fun. Can I go home now? But it was really a lot of fun. But overcoming my seasickness on the boat, I was sitting in what's called the sonar shack. It's a little area off the side of the main command center where they steer the boat from. And I was sitting in one of the empty sonar chairs. And there was one sonar guy on duty listening to sounds in the ocean. And I sat there, and I was zoning out, thinking, oh, okay, this will make me feel better. And as I was doing so, I closed my eyes, and the sounds of the sub, it's very loud inside a sub, which you may not know. You think it's very quiet. That's on the outside, okay, by design. But on the inside, it's noisy. People walking around, you hear noises, you hear high-pressure air, all kinds of noises, all these announcements. But I sat there, and that became white noise, and I was just zoning out. Oh, that feels so good. Now, hopefully my stomach will calm down. Last thing I want to do is get sick on, like, the commander's shoes. Bad idea, because you can't run anywhere. There's no place you can run where you can't find you. So as I was sitting there, the sonar tech blares out at some point, I don't know how long, he blares out a call to the con. He says, con, sonar, fast mover. And the executive officer, XO, comes around the side from the control room, and he says, what do you got? And now, you have to understand, and sorry about that thing here, the seats on a sub are locked down. They don't move. So I was sitting on the edge of my seat going like this, making it look like something you do every day. Trying to listen in, trying to hear what they were saying. And the kid said, he said basically, he gave a bearing and a range for this thing, which I didn't hear. But he did say, he did give him a speed. And the reason I heard the speed was because the kid was sort of incredulous. He'd never seen this before. Now, the thing was there and it was gone. It was very fast, very rapid. And the XO said, how fast is that moving? Because the XO was right here looking at me as I was standing on the edge of my butt. And the kid was facing the screen. He turned to the XO, and I had to kind of lean. But he said it loud enough for me to hear. He goes, several hundred knots, sir. And the XO was like, say again, several hundred knots. Not 700, several hundred. And the XO was looking at him. He goes, And he looks at the screen, and the kid goes like this. Now, sonar techs on subs are not allowed to have an unknown contact. They're supposed to classify everything. Well, usually if it's something they don't understand, it becomes like a whale or some type of biologic noise, Well, whales don't go several hundred knots, and you can't just pretend they do. So the kid had no idea what to classify this as, And the XO said, okay. He says, log it and dog it. And he turned around and walked away. Now, log it, pardon me. And dog it means hide it. Hide it. So, when he said that, Mr. Big Shot here, hey, I was invited on a sub. How about Big Shot? I got up. XO, I'm familiar with these fast movers. Is there anything I can help you with? Big Shot. XO, Mr. Dantonio, hand on my shoulder. You having a good time, sir? Yes, sir, I am. Let's keep it that way. And he walks away. I was like, okay. And I just basically retreated and hoped I would never see him again in the boat. Unfortunately, I saw him quite a lot on the boat after that. But so the truth is, he didn't want to tell me. He didn't have to. It wasn't in his purview. He didn't have to expose anything, even though I had a clearance, a fairly high clearance. Okay, he didn't have to tell me a thing, and he didn't. Fast forward 4 or 5 years, I had to do a job for the Joint Chiefs in Washington. You know, the guys that run the armed services. And I was interfacing with the Navy chief, and I asked the Navy chief at his home, and this is the problem. Okay, this was on my mind for years, right? I asked this Navy chief at his home, or the chief of the chiefs. I said, in my mind, don't ask the question, don't do it. What's the fast mover program? And I was like, you did it, didn't you? I said, yeah, I did. I asked him. I can't believe I asked him the question, arguing with myself. And I just sat there going, oh, you idiot. That's the end of this relationship. You know, it's the end of this work. And he could have said, what's that? He could have said, I don't know what you're talking about. He didn't. He said, I can't talk about that program. I'm sorry, Mark. I thought I was going to have an accident. He admitted, well, you know, he admitted that this exists. The fast mover program exists. And we never thought that ATIP exists, but it does and did. Okay? So you see, the programs are out there, and it's not just our Navy. The only reason I'm talking about that incident and haven't talked about it is because I was afraid of repercussions. But then the Russians came out and talked about it. The Russians saw these unknown submerged objects. Okay, great. With these unknown submerged objects, that means that we can actually now talk about this. We can have a conversation about this. And that's exactly what I'm doing with you now. You know? So as it turns out, that was a strange phenomenon, an interesting one, but it's not the only one. I wish it was. We move on to other strange things that have happened and that we have familiarity with in our sphere of experiences, and it's abductions. Now we know about Barney and Betty Hill. You know Kathy, she's very good, Kathy Martin. Okay, and Travis is a good friend. He's been around, he's in the other room. And, you know, these are people that are trustworthy people and good friends. And they have nothing to gain by lying about anything, you know. And, you know, there's always skeptical people that will say things. And you know, I've doubted stories of almost everybody, okay? But when you look at their experiences and you try to figure out if their experiences, you know, are real, there's no way to punch holes in these experiences, you know. You know, the Barney and Betty Hill stories is fundamental in our culture now, and it's something that we've actually used as a bellwether of UFO abduction cases and cases. Travis Walton as well, you know. But why would we have creatures here abducting us? Well, I put it to you that we do it ourselves, right? What do we do with animals? Tranquilize that elk. Let's tag that sucker. Oh, God, what happened? Okay. Ear tag, right? He wakes up. He goes back to his herd. You know, well, we don't know whether elk talk, but you don't hear of any elk saying, hey, Frank, you got some big yellow tag hanging out of your ear. I do? You mean, hey, nice big radio collar you got on there, Bob. Yeah. See, we are smart creatures. They have to use clandestine magic, basically, to tag us. But I think they do that. And that's something that is, very important to understand. You know, Bud Hopkins, everybody knows Bud Hopkins. I knew Bud Hopkins, and, you know, he was one of the most prolific researchers in this arena, and had a lot of respect for Bud. And I doubted the abduction scenario until it hit me in the face. I'm a science guy. This stuff doesn't happen to me until it does. Now what do I do? My son was 9, and he's 21 now. And I had said before his age was 22, and it's like, man, if he heard that I messed up his age, I'll never hear the end of it. He's 21 now. Graduating film school, actually, this September. You know, actually going to be out there in the market doing journalism and film. Very successful. And he started sleeping in our bed at age 9. And I read online that that's common, you know, kids will do that. They have night terrors and that kind of thing. And at that point, when he was 9, I wasn't MUFON's photo analyst, the chief photo and video analyst for MUFON. I wasn't even doing astronomy. I was doing computer science at an insurance company, bored out of my skull, Ended that real quick. And so while he was sleeping in the bed, he's kicking you. You know how kids are. They're little furnaces, like little nuclear reactors that are there. And it's like, man, I can't get any sleep. So you wake up, and no one has any covers on except him in the middle of the winter. And he's all wrapped up like in a cocoon of covers. He's like, and we're like, ugh. So I took him aside, and I said, Hunter. His middle name's Orion, by the way. My other son is Gabriel Galileo. Astronomers, kids, come on, So I said to Hunter, I go, will you please tell me what's going on? Why are you sleeping in our bed? And he wouldn't tell me. No. Hunter, what's going on? And he started to cry. And what he said next chilled me to the bone, because I had never exposed them to any ufology stuff, because I was sensitive to fears kids have. Never did that. Never books around, never pictures, nothing like that. He looked at me, and through tears, he said, I'm afraid that aliens are going to come through my window and take me again. Yeah. I was like, wait, what? Now, these things are familial sometimes, abductions. And I left my previous house because of a similar incident, which you're going to hear about. And so I did not expect my children to have this happen. I also didn't expect to be awakened at 2 a.m. to footsteps in my attic, walking around. And you could hear him turn on the floor. You could hear the ball of the foot turn and grit under the ball of the foot. And I'm following the sound across my bedroom ceiling. Now, because of the work I did for the Navy, I called the police immediately. It was 2 a.m. And they know what I do. As I hung up the phone, I looked out the window and I saw blue lights off the trees. They were already coming. They were there in about 40 seconds. They come into the house. I told them to just walk in. They come upstairs, and they said, what do you got? And I said, well, we have sounds in the attic. There's somebody up there or something, and it sounds like a child. Now, I thought maybe my kids had gotten out of bed and gone up there. I looked into their bedroom. What did I see? They were sound asleep. And I was like, uh-oh, there's something else up there. There's something else in my attic. So the police and I all walk into my room, where this ladder goes up to the attic door, which was still latched and in place. We all looked at the attic door. And then one police officer says to me, seems okay to me, Mark. I go, yeah, it does, doesn't it? He goes, all right, well, give us a call if you hear it again. Okay. And we all went to bed. They went home. They went back to duty. I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and I said, what happened? Why? Wouldn't you check out the call? Why did it feel okay to not go up into the attic? I don't know. Violates my science. That violates everything. So I went around the corner to look up there, and the door was unlatched and off. I went up into the attic, and guess what? There was Hunter sitting on the floor, looking around. I saw he was in his bed. This was latched. We proved it. I said, what are you doing up here? He goes, I don't know. And you know what? When I ask him about that, he doesn't remember that now. To this day, he doesn't remember that. Subjective experience, subjective human experience. I saw him on the floor, and he was just sitting there, kind of lost, and he had no idea why he was there. Crazy stuff, okay? But that's was that an abduction? I don't know. Was it a strange sound? Was it maybe a natural thing in my attic that was just bouncing around? I checked, it wasn't. But on the outside chance, maybe it was. I don't know, but what explains everything else? You can't put it all together and find it to be something that isn't high strangeness, Now, with missing time, this is interesting. We've heard about this before. There could be medical reasons why people are missing time. But I actually had an experience with missing time, which I can't explain. And for a long time, I was thinking, why am I so interested in UFOs? Why am I interested in astronomy? How come when I go out at night and I look up, I feel homesick? Why? Why does that happen? I don't know. But as it turns out, what I do is I look for indications that there might be life in the universe. And the reason I do that is because I think there is life in the universe. I think there's life in the universe. I know it's falling off, I know. I think there's life in the universe, and I think that there's life in the universe, and I think that we're going to find it someday. I really do. All right? But I remember when I was a young kid, grammar school, I was going on a trip, a school trip to Burr Pond. Burr Pond, like B-U-R-R. Burr Pond was in Torrington, Connecticut. It was a wonderful pond. We were going to go look and see frogs and fish. Wow, it was going to be cool. Maybe I'll actually catch a frog. Ooh. You know, I had a little brown bag lunch. I got on the bus, sat down, got off the bus at Burr Pond. Like, I can't wait. And the next thing I know, I was getting back on the bus with my brown bag lunch still in my hand, sitting down and going home. What happened? We were here all day, all afternoon, realistically, right? And the kids said, "Where were you?" I went, "Wasn't I with you?" I went to Burr Pond. We didn't see you. None of us saw you. What? None of them saw me. Okay. Well, I got home, and my mother saw that I didn't eat my lunch. "Why didn't you eat your lunch?" That's how all moms talk, right? No. And I said, "I don't know." She said, "Well, go out and play. Dinner's going to be ready in a little while." I went out to play, and I felt a little sick, and I collapsed, and I started having convulsions, and I went into these seizures. And I didn't know what it was, but I remember it clearly. I clearly remember these seizures. I remember that I was on the ground. I remember banging my head on the dirt and feeling the grit on my forehead. I remember the ants getting closer and farther away. And I was banging my head on the ground. I remember that. And I remember making this unearthly guttural sound at the same time. Well, the friend I was playing with called my mother, and they sent me to the hospital to get checked out. Well, on the way to the hospital, being who I am, I started to feel a little better, and I said to the police at the time who were driving me, because at the time the ambulance would have taken too long to get there, so they just threw me in a police car. Okay? I said, "Can you run the siren?" And they did. I was like, "Yeah, that's a siren for me. I'm so special." You know, little kids, you know how we are. I'm still a little kid. So I get there, and the doctor says, "Well, not sure what happened. Did you remember anything happening at Burr Pond?" And I said, "I don't know." And they said, "Well, something had to happen." So in my mind, what am I thinking? I got to figure out what happened. I got to come up with something. So I told them something. I said, "I fell on a dock." And they said, "Oh, okay, you probably have a concussion. Okay, treat him this way." Talk to my mother, Millie. Okay, "Millie, Leo, treat him with this, give him that, and just let him rest for a while. He'll be fine." So I got out of the hospital. Whew, wow, I'm going to be okay. Little kid, right? Well, there's no docks at Burr Pond. It's a natural pond. They've never had a dock in Burr Pond in the entire history of Burr Pond. Confirmable stuff. So I don't know what that was about. I just know that it was actually true missing time. I lost the whole afternoon, and I don't know what happened. But I do know that when I got home, whatever happened caused seizures that never occurred again, by the way. Never occurred again. One time. So who knows what that was? And that was bothering me for a long time. Many years. And I could never figure out what it was. And I think that perhaps it was part of the reason that I've so been drawn to the sky. Look, it's a beautiful place. It's astronomy. We cannot touch the things we examine. We only see the light. And it's the most beautiful light. So that's my experience with the missing time thing. And we also know that people see implants. Have implants. Implants are another biggie, right? I mean, there's a lot of stories. Many people have implants. There's people in this room that will be able to say, "I have implants too," or "I've had implants." Maybe there's people in this room that interface with Roger Lear and had him take out the implants. or even examine them. I had an incident that happened to me, but it was after Roger Lear had passed away, and I couldn't talk to him about it. And that's this thing that happened to me. I was, my first house, I alluded to the fact I had to move out of my first house because, second house actually, into a third house, because I felt that something happened that was so terrifying that I couldn't sleep in that room anymore, in that house. And what had happened was, on the first night of the terrifying event, ordeal, I woke up at 3:15 a.m. exactly, and I woke up to this. What the heck is that? I have vinyl siding. If that's a woodpecker, he's out of luck, you know? And I had no idea what it was. So I went back to sleep. The next night, I go to sleep, and again, I wake up, I look at the clock. Dang, it's 3:15 a.m. again. What the heck is going on? I have no idea what this is, right? This time I get up. And now, at the time, I had greyhound dogs that I rescued from the dog track. You know, those animals are killed to the tune of 17,000 plus a year. So I rescued 2 of them, named them Tycho and Kepler. Of course, astronomers' dogs, you know. So I walk over to the windowsill, and their bed is underneath the window. It's an August night, okay? And I lean over to touch the windowsill, and I lean to the screen, all right? And I press my face to the screen, and poof, I get a white light in my face. I thought it was like a neurological event or something happened medically. So I just froze there, not particularly panicked in any way, but just like, whoa, what was that? I thought it was a nerve pinch maybe or whatever. When I looked out, I noticed that I could not see the streetlight anymore that was out there. And then slowly I saw the streetlight come in, and then the area around it started to fill in again. I was flash blinded. And so slowly my sight came back. I was like, what was that? And I looked down, and my dogs are gone. You know, oh. So I turn on the light, and I turn around, and I go looking for Tycho. Tycho's hiding in the closet. He's in a laundry pile, okay, and he's like this, shaking. I go, Tycho, what's the matter, boy? Come on, oh, come on, it's all right. I pull him out, and he's like, yeah. You know, he won't come out of the closet, you know. So I let him stay in the closet for the night. Kepler, she left the room entirely. She was outside. I ain't coming in there. Don't you even tell me I'm not coming in there. I mean, that's how I read that, you know. So I did the only thing logical, you know, that you would do in that situation. I went back to bed. I felt it was okay to go back to bed. Like, you know, dummy. So the next night, I wake up again. Oh, here we go again. Wait a minute, this is different. I can't move. Okay, I'm familiar with hypnopompic states. I'm familiar with that state. In fact, I use it for meditation. I can use that state. I can make it happen anytime to send energy up and down my body. I can feel that. I can do that. It's a nice thing. So I was enjoying it at first, saying, oh, I woke up into this state. I'm going to just enjoy it for a while. But what time is it? And I went to turn my head. I couldn't move my head. Uh-oh. Let me reconnect. Uh-oh, I can't move my head. Well, let me just look. I tried to move my eyes. My eyes won't move. My eyes are stuck. So I'm thinking to myself, oh no, I'm going to die here. That thing that wasn't just a nerve pinch. I must have had a stroke or something, and now I'm going to be, you know, never found. You know, I'm going to die here, and I'm wide awake. You know, and so I was a little panicked. Well, anyway, during that time, I ended up noticing that the light, and I'm looking at you because it was peripheral vision. I didn't see it this way because I couldn't turn my head. So you're where I was looking. I lay on my back. I saw the light over here get eclipsed by something that walked in front of the window. And I couldn't look to see what it was, but then it was coming toward me, like this. I'm like, what is that? And I'm wide awake at this point, because of course panic does a number on you. You wake right up, you know. And I was awake as I am now. And this thing walked over to me, and I noticed that it extended a hand. And you know, in the dim light, you can't see color. And it looked like a gray hand to me, okay? I couldn't see color. But I really felt like it was a gray hand for real. I don't know why I felt that, but it seemed like a real gray hand. And it was waving this like a pen, but it was not a pen. It was a translucent wand, kind of a soft white glow, back and forth, and then bam, it was morning, and I couldn't breathe, and I was on my stomach. I push off the pillow, and I noticed the pillow literally pooled with my blood. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, what happened? And I remember the incident. I'm going, wow, this is nothing normal. I'm a science guy. This stuff does not happen to me. It did not happen. It did not happen. Okay? It did happen. There's the blood. And I touched my nose. It's like I got punched in the face. So I did the only thing that is logical for anyone that had this happen to them. I went to work. Forgot all about it. 4 years later, and by the way, when I woke up that morning, from that point forward, I couldn't breathe out of this sinus. This nose was blocked totally. Couldn't breathe. Don't ask me why it took 4 years, but it took 4 years to go to an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. And when I did, I walked into his office, and he put me in the room, and he goes, what's the problem? I said, I can't breathe out of this sinus. Oh, okay, let's see what's going on up there. He goes, wow, he says, you've got something huge up there. Really? Yeah. He says, it looks like a sinus polyp, but it's the biggest polyp I've ever seen. And I've been doing this they always pull rank. I've been doing this for like 40 years. Wow. Can you get it out? Yeah, I think we can take it out. So they numbed me up and lassoed the thing and took it out. And they pulled that giant thing through this little tiny hole right here, that little one right there. It was this big. And it came through, yeah. I was like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall. Pulling that big ball out of his nose. That's what it felt like, okay? And it was before Total Recall, actually. So as that happened, I look at it, and he goes, wow, he says. This is a doctor. When a doctor says, wow, that worries you, It's like, wow. Like, what? And he's like, that is kind of big. And I went, yeah, okay. Can I have it? No, I got to send it down to the pathology to get it biopsied, I went, okay. Well, tell me something then, Doc. Can these things seed around a foreign object? I mean, It means, he says, you mean like a metal splinter that a machinist might get in his nose? I'm like, yeah, exactly. He goes, sure, I think that can happen. It's an irritation. The body tries to encapsulate it. I can understand why that could happen. Why do you ask? In my mind, I said, don't tell him the story. Make something up. Don't tell him the story. And the story was already coming out. Everything I told you. You can imagine the look on this guy's face. And he goes, he goes, hey, I'm sure it wasn't aliens. I go, yeah, I know. Of course not. Who would think of aliens? And he goes, call me in a week and I'll give you the results. No problem. So a week goes by. I call. Yeah, hi, it's Marc Dantonio. Oh, hang on. Doctor has to talk to you. Oh, I must have like some kind of head rot disease or something. My head's going to fall off. Because why would the doctor, when do you ever call a doctor and say, oh, hang on, doc has to talk to you? That's never good news. So he gets on the phone with me. He says, hey, Mr. Dantonio, I just wanted to let you know that it's probably benign. Probably. Oh, so you don't have the results from pathology yet? What? Hello? He said, well, he goes, I got to tell you, this is the first time this has ever happened. Here we go. First time this has ever happened in the history of my office, but pathology says they can't find the sample. Yeah, right? Yeah. Pathology says they can't. Okay, sure. And now, rather than become a belligerent guy, I said, oh, so you think it's just benign then? He goes, yeah, I'm sure it's just benign. Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Lehman, Hartford Hospital, Dr. Lehman, Look, can't make this stuff up. And he goes, okay, no problem, Mr. Dantonio. Goodbye. Bye. I get off the phone. Son of a boop. Okay. I think the sample got taken. But I had nothing to base that on. So a couple years later, I went back to him because I had to do something else. I had something else I had a problem with. And on the intake sheet, the sheet you fill out, this is why are you here today? What the name of your firstborn? Do you have money to pay me if you can't? No, yeah, okay. All those things. Well, I put that I do special projects for the Navy. And I didn't specifically say anything about a clearance because you're not allowed to. But I said special projects for the Navy. They don't have to be things with clearances. Well, he knew what that meant because when he walked into the room, he was looking at my intake sheet, and he goes, special projects for the Navy? Yeah, I do classified work for them at times. And he says, well, I gave up my top secret clearance just this year. What? I said, what do you operate on top secret polyps? And he goes, no. He says, I wasn't always a doctor I wasn't always an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. He said, I was actually not in charge, but he said the main guy on a project to take down an enemy satellite in space with a nuclear weapon. That's Project Starfish, folks. Look that up. It lit up Honolulu when it was set off. And this doctor, the guy that stuck his things in my nose to pull that thing out, was one of the lead guys in that project. And he carried a top secret clearance all the way until that year. Now I knew what happened. When you have a clearance, you have to report any potential national security violations or potential national security issues. You have to report it no matter how senseless it may seem. So he did, I'm convinced. And they came and they took the sample. It might have just been a stupid polyp. I doubt it. There was a lot of terror in 3 days' worth of experience that kind of says otherwise. So you see, yet another thing. We have ATIP. We have USOs, unknown submerged objects, that the Navy knows about and has been tracking. And we have implants in people that they're also tracking. There's a evidence chain here. It's an evidence chain. So now we talk about, another thing is people have encounters directly with extraterrestrial beings. And history's replete, of course, with these, and we have a bunch of these varieties. Among them, the Flatwoods Monster, Greys, Little Green Men. I have a theory about why Little Green, by the way. And these other guys here. Now, I was just in Norway from August 14th till August 31st. And then a day and a half later, I fly out here. So they're 6 hours ahead from where I am in Connecticut. So I'm 9 hours ahead right now. And when I got to Nordics, everyone in the Norwegian audience went, And one of the speakers was blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordic, woman. And I said, she's one. And they're like, good talking points. So, and then the reptilians. Now, I used to think that anyone who thought that these creatures existed, other than the Greys possibly, were just like, oh, that's so stupid. I literally was like that. But I'm not like that anymore, and I'll tell you why. I've had a few revelations about this stuff. And the reason is because we have a world where we've had a number of things that have happened to our planet as we have evolved as beings. Not all these things happen probably on other worlds. And our star is a very forgiving star, and the stellar types give us a clue as to what types of beings there might be out there. For example, we might see that the hot blue stars, those O and B stars, won't have planets at all because they're too powerful with ultraviolet radiation. We see that these stars down the list, the lower temperature and lower radiation stars, like the A, F, G, K, M, that's how we classify stars. They go from hottest to coolest, bluest to reddest. Those stars at the other end are more suitable for life, as you can see, but the O and B's too powerful, So it depends on where we find the planets, what the beings might look like. Around an A star, they might have small eyes because the star is really bright. Around an M star, because the planets are locked to their star because they're usually so close, maybe because the same face of the planet always faces the star, what if you develop on the dark side? Which will be permanent dark forever and ever. Well, maybe you'll have big eyes. Maybe that's where grays come from. Big black eyes, who knows? It's all speculation. But the question is, in pursuit of planets like ours, what do we do? If we're doing it, then so are they, and they might have been here for millions of years before us. All right. So the big factor in determining that development of a creature elsewhere is evolution. What happened on these distant planets, these distant worlds, that might have created some of the creatures that people report now here? What might have happened? How might evolution occur on these other planets? And the number of exoplanets is climbing, so the likelihood is rising too. We're looking at possibly 25 million to 10 to 20 billion other Earth-like planets just in our galaxy. And there's 2 trillion other galaxies, folks. Just a little fact for you. So we're talking about a very strong possibility here of life elsewhere, and possibly intelligent life. Now, we're only getting started, and we only know the one world that has actually achieved this, and that's ours. Okay? But to understand alien evolution, to understand how they might have developed there, we have to look at how life developed here. All right? And I brought a very high-tech piece of apparatus that some have seen, and it's very high-tech. I've done this before. It's well used. It's a roll of toilet paper. It's clean, okay, and I've written out the entire history of the Earth on every sheet. Yeah, I have no life. But you know what? It's wonderful. So I'm going to ask Kat Hobson, who's in the audience. Kat, if you can come up, she's going to help me with this. And what I'm going to do, Kat, is I'm going to actually have you hold the end and just pull it off the stage from over there, so they can see it, and then I can look at it as well and show people, all right? So we start now with the fact that Earth formed, and this is 298 sheets, all right? And when we get 3 sheets to the wind, we'll be nearly done. That old joke, okay? Thank you. You can stand right there if you want, but and I'll just move to here, and then you can just pull it and drop it as we go. Normally, I go out into the audience, and I unwind it all around you, and then they say, look, I toilet papered my audience. But I can't do that now, because this is really a crepe paper. I actually had to remake it because the real toilet paper, and yes, I did use real toilet paper, okay, started to disintegrate after a few times, and it really looked used. So I had to stop. So at sheet 298 down there, 4.5 billion years ago, that's when the Earth formed. And then here, at sheet, what sheet? I'm sorry. At 290, hello. At this sheet here, let me read, thanks. 291, this is when the moon formed, okay? That was 4.5 billion years ago compared to 4.6 billion years ago for the Earth, okay? Earth forming in the solar nebula. Now, the oldest rocks were found here at sheet 284, and that was 4.4 billion years ago, right? Now you can just pull it toward you. I'll tell you, when something happens, I'll tell you to stop. There. Okay, now at sheet 292, okay, this is where the formation of the atmosphere begins. Now, what does that mean? It means there were volcanic eruptions. And these volcanic eruptions were spewing stuff into the atmosphere, what would become the atmosphere. These spewings were hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, water, and various other methane, various other chemicals. Primordial atmosphere. Okay? Great stuff. Don't breathe it. But the thing is, that happened way back here, 4.2 billion years ago it started. And there you go. Isn't she great? Yeah. There you go. Okay. Let's stop right there. Kat actually has Fate Magazine radio, and I got to get it right now. If you have a chance, it's WBHM digital broadcasting. So check it out. Okay. She's very good, and she's a good friend. So I asked her to do this, to act up out. She can say whatever she wants to me, because she's got my toilet paper, and she's a professional toilet paper puller. Oh, that's not good. So at sheet 220 here, here's a very important spot. This, I don't have a time frame on, and the reason, and this is the formation of cyanobacteria. blue-green algae, the little single-celled bacteriums, actually, that were the carbon dioxide gobblers. Because remember when the volcanoes were spewing all that atmosphere? Some of that was carbon dioxide. These guys were carbon dioxide gobblers. And the opportunity arose to have a creature evolve that could actually eat up this carbon dioxide. Well, there they are, the cyanobacteria. And the benefit is the waste product from the other end of the bacteria was oxygen. So how's it feel to be breathing bacteria poop? Yeah, you think I'm kidding. But that's what we're doing, right? And that's fair, okay? So that happened between 2.7 and 3.4 billion years ago. They're really not sure, so keep going. And now, as we keep going here, you'll see that a lot of nothing is going on, and you might wonder, why is Cat pulling toilet paper from a roll where nothing, okay, something is happening. At this point now, sheet 174, 2.7 billion years ago, pivotal moment, the buildup of the oxygen atmosphere around our planet. Why is that pivotal? Because Stephen Hawking said we should not announce our presence to the universe. We should hide, right? Too late. 2.7 billion years ago, we started announcing our presence by life that was creating a replenished oxygen atmosphere. Oxygen doesn't want to stay in an atmosphere. It immediately likes to go out. It goes into the rocks. Mars rusted, for crying out loud. Oxygen from Mars' atmosphere went down into the iron compounds and created Fe2O3, rust. Well, that's a problem. So we've been announcing our presence for over 2.7 billion years. Too late, Professor Hawking. So, unfortunately, for better or for worse, we've actually got a case now where we're looking at the fact that oxygen is building up in our atmosphere, and we're announcing our presence. So, that said, moving along, we come to a point where, and these are just housekeeping points, the Archean era, Proterozoic, earlier life, 2.5 billion years ago, all right? I'll tell you why this is important in a minute. And we keep going, and you'll notice each one of these sheets is like 15 million years, so a lot's been happening here. We're zipping through the timeline on the Earth. It's over 100 feet long, okay? Yeah, I know, keep going. We're getting near the end. All right, that's okay. At this point now, this is where Rodinia formed. It's the early supercontinent, okay? Keep going. Oh, and that was a 1.4 billion years ago. There we go. Aha. Now, this is the first known complex animals, 1.2 billion years ago. Isn't she good? It's like Vanna White, but for toilet paper. And she's really good at it, you know? It's a gift, she says. Right. It's a gift. And, okay. Now, 800 million years ago, this is where the early supercontinent Rodinia broke up. Kind of important, because why did it break up? It broke up because plate tectonics started to come into play, where the crustal plates are being bashed around by the forces beneath the surface. We have a frozen crust, a cooled crust, on top of this magma ocean beneath it, called the mantle. And these crustal plates have been bouncing around, smashing into each other all along. And that's when that started happening. Now, consequently, at the same time, 700 million years ago, we had early multicellular organisms. Now, these crustal plates, all right, were life-free. There was nothing on the surface at that point. It was all barren rock, okay, barren rock. But 700 million years ago, in the oceans that formed there, we had these early multicellular organisms, the first time they showed up, okay? And there we go. Now this is 35, 544 million years ago. This is where grammar school kicks in. This is the Cambrian, the Precambrian era, where the oceans, this excessive life in the oceans really began. Crazy stuff. It happened here, all right? And the Cambrian era begins, and then 510 million years ago, the Cambrian era ends. Now, then the Ordovician era begins, and we have early fish 490 million years ago. The important development, because fish are a very complex creature. They might have been little tiny guys, but they were complex. Every cell. Now, the key here, specialized cells that do specific things, nerve bundles to do this, sight things to do this. sensors to detect electrical impulses in the water. That's where that happened, okay? Now, at sheet 29, early land plants. Ta-da! This is where it happens, folks. This is where 450 million years ago, this is where life colonizes the land for the first time. Yeah, go us. Well, sort of us, you know. Now, at the end of the Ordovician era, okay, we had the Ordovician extinction. At that point, 86% of the life forms on this planet died. Wow. Talk about, you know, that's a rather anticlimactic end, you know. Why'd they die? Well, we don't know. We don't know what caused the Ordovician extinction, but it happened. Now, had that not happened, what would happen to life? Where would life have gone? All right. Would we have gotten different types of fish? Would we have gotten land plants that were very different? Yeah. It's incredible. So then, moving to the Silurian 408 million years ago, we see the first insects 400 million years ago, all right? Now, when that happened, the Silurian ends and we have the Devonian. In the Devonian, that's the age of the insects. Now, what if there wasn't a Devonian extinction here, okay? 75% of life died. Maybe we would have insectoid species on this planet that were more advanced, right? Yep. Possible. And 340 million years ago, we have the first reptiles. Then we have Pangea, 280 million years ago. And then the Permian extinction. 98% of life died on this planet. And guess what? The dominant species were pre-mammals. Us. Before we were us. These pre-mammals were the hardest hit. And the Permian extinction killed off most of them. Guess what that led to? It led to reptiles taking the lead. Go reptiles. So reptiles ended up becoming the dominant species, and thus began the age of the dinosaurs, which was cut abruptly short 65 million years ago. However, the one thing that we have to know here, the one thing we recognize, is that when this Permian extinction happened, had it not happened, maybe we would have been dominant 250 million years ago. But we weren't. We were thrust into the shadows, only to reemerge when we saw the extinction way up here of the dinosaurs, the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, 65 million years ago. The dinosaurs were hardest hit. Yeah. And mammals reemerged from the shadows. Go us again, right? So you see, when you look at this and you think about everything that's happened, I meant that. I've been practicing that for years. When you look at everything that's happened, okay, we have a major number of extinction events. These things that have happened shaped us to be exactly what we are. But if they didn't, we might get insectoid species. We might get reptilian species. You see? We don't know. But the universe provides templates for all the life we've seen here. And that life is something that will probably be replicated elsewhere, right? If you want to pick me up anywhere, thank you very much, Kat. Thank you. You can find me on thenewsciences.com. You can find me on YouTube at SkyTour Livestream, where you're encouraged to join and come along for the nightly ride. We have over 100 streams already up there from our observatory. You could also listen to me on SkyTour Radio, Sunday nights, 8 to 10, on kgraradio.com. And it's an astronomy show on a paranormal station. And so far, we're getting really humbling reviews, very, very good reviews. You know, we are 3 to 4 in our time slot from iHeartRadio and TalkStream Live. And we reach 3 million people a month. So we're actually pretty excited about that. So please come along for the ride. I look forward to seeing you, and I thank you for listening to me rave on.